Rideshare apps feel safe until they aren't. With one tap, you step into a stranger's car, giving up control and placing your trust in the unknown. These are 3 chilling true stories of Uber rides that didn't end with a 5-star review, but with nightmares. 1. The wrong car. The tragic death of Samantha Josephson. In March 2019, 21-year-old Samantha Josephson was just weeks away from graduating from the University of South Carolina. That night, she was out with friends in the city of Columbia, celebrating life, talking about the future, and having fun. Around 2 a.m., she decided to head home. Her friends offered to go with her, but she insisted she'd be fine. She'd just call an Uber. Samantha ordered a ride and waited outside a popular bar. A black Chevy Impala pulled up. She got in, but it wasn't her Uber. The driver, 24-year-old Nathaniel Rowland, had seen her waiting alone and seized the opportunity. Once she was in the car, he activated child safety locks, trapping her in the back seat. What happened next was pure horror. Over the next several minutes, Rowland brutally attacked Samantha, stabbing her more than 120 times before dumping her body in a remote field over 60 miles away. Her body was found the next day. Surveillance footage from outside the bar showed her getting into Rowland's car. Inside his vehicle, police found Samantha's blood, her cell phone, bleach, and cleaning supplies. Rowland was arrested and eventually sentenced to life in prison without parole. What makes this story so heartbreaking, beyond the violence, is how preventable it was. Samantha thought she was getting into a safe, vetted Uber, but she didn't check the license plate. She didn't ask the driver's name. She trusted the appearance of the car and the timing. That one mistake cost her everything. Her parents launched a national campaign after her death, pushing for rideshare safety laws, and eventually helped pass Sami's Law, requiring more visible identifiers on rideshare vehicles and stricter safety features. But no legislation can undo what happened to Samantha. Her story is a tragic reminder that even familiar services can become deadly when the wrong person is behind the wheel. 2. I Know Where You Live. Jessica's Nightmare in Los Angeles. Jessica, a 34-year-old graphic designer living in Los Angeles, used Uber almost daily. It was part of her routine: early coffee runs, late-night gigs, and trips to visit friends. It never occurred to her that something could go wrong, until one night in June 2020. She had gone out for dinner with a group of coworkers and ordered an Uber to take her home around 10:30 p.m. The ride was uneventful. Quiet driver, clean car, smooth route. She got home, thanked the driver, and thought nothing of it, until the messages started. The next day, she received a text from an unknown number. "You looked so beautiful last night. I loved having you in my car." She replied, confused. The person responded with, "Don't be shy, Jessica. I know where you live." Chills ran down her spine. She quickly realized it was the Uber driver from the night before. He had used her contact info from the app, or possibly remembered her address, and tracked her down outside the platform. Jessica blocked the number and contacted Uber support immediately. They responded with an automated message and then followed up with a generic apology, saying the driver would be investigated. But she didn't feel safe. She called the police, but they told her unless he had made a direct threat or showed up in person, there wasn't much they could do. 2 nights later, she saw a car idling outside her apartment. The same model, same license plate. She stayed inside and called 911. Officers arrived, but the car was gone. What followed was a spiral of anxiety, therapy, and eventual relocation. Jessica moved to a new apartment, changed her phone number, and stopped using rideshare apps altogether. Only after posting her experience on social media did Uber permanently ban the driver. Her story highlights a terrifying gap in how rideshare companies vet their drivers, not just at the start, but after complaints are filed. It also underscores how fragile boundaries can be when your personal data, your name, address, and phone number, are readily available to a stranger in a car. The worst part, Jessica was never physically harmed, but the psychological damage, feeling watched, stalked, and invaded, was just as real. And it all started with what should have been a routine ride home. 3. Taken for a ride. The abduction of Brooke Atkins. In August 2017, 25-year-old Brooke Atkins was leaving a music festival in Chicago. The night had been fun, dancing, live bands, endless crowds. But as the festival wound down around midnight, Brooke realized she had drifted away from her group. Cell signal was weak. She was exhausted and just wanted to get back to her hotel. She ordered an Uber. A white Toyota Camry pulled up, matching the app's description. She opened the door. The man behind the wheel smiled and nodded. "Brooke?" he asked. She said yes and got in. But something was off. The driver didn't speak. He ignored her attempts at conversation. And after a few minutes, Brooke noticed they weren't taking the usual route. No highway, no familiar landmarks. She pulled out her phone to check the map. The app showed the ride had been canceled. Her heart dropped. They weren't heading to her hotel. She asked the driver where they were going. He didn't answer. She repeated the question, louder this time. Still nothing. Brooke tried the door. It was locked. She screamed for him to stop. He accelerated. Panic set in. She called 911 and screamed her location as best she could before the driver slapped the phone out of her hand. It hit the floor, but dispatchers had already traced the call. Police were dispatched immediately. What followed was a terrifying 18-minute drive through unfamiliar neighborhoods. Brooke managed to unlock the door while the car was slowing near a stop sign. She jumped out, rolling onto the pavement and injuring her leg. A nearby couple heard her screams and ran to help. Minutes later, the police arrived. The driver was arrested less than 2 miles away. His name wasn't on any rideshare platform. He had seen the festival crowds, found someone waiting alone, and posed as her driver. He later admitted under interrogation that he had just wanted to see where it would go. Brooke's injuries were minor, but the mental scars ran deep. She had trusted the car, the app, and the process. All the indicators had seemed legitimate. But in a chaotic environment, with noise, crowds, and urgency, it's easy to let your guard down. Her story was covered in the local press, but the rideshare company distanced themselves, claiming it wasn't their fault since the driver wasn't technically theirs. That only made her angrier, because at the end of the day, there are no company logos on the side of those cars, just trust, and in her case, that trust was shattered. These stories are not meant to scare you away from rideshare apps entirely. Millions of Uber rides happen every day without incident. But what these 3 stories reveal is the horrifying potential of when that trust is broken, when the wrong person is behind the wheel and the system fails to protect you. Samantha Josephson's tragic murder exposed the dangers of mistaken identity in high-traffic nightlife areas. Jessica's chilling experience showed how a single ride can turn into long-term stalking. And Brooke's terrifying near abduction reminded us all that predators can use even the illusion of legitimacy to prey on the vulnerable. Each of these stories ended badly, but they could have ended worse. They remind us all to stay alert, even in the comfort of familiar services. Because when you're riding alone with a stranger, you're not just going somewhere. You're trusting that the stranger sees you as a passenger, not a target. So next time you get into an Uber, take the extra step. Verify the license plate. Ask the driver's name. Share your trip with someone. Sit behind the driver, not directly behind the passenger seat. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Because the scariest thing about these stories isn't what happened to these women. It's how easily it could happen to anyone else.